I don't think I remembered it at the time, but said there was 3 people made the top grade in the county, and 91.6, and I was one of them.
You were one of them.
Yeah, one of the
in
3
that year.
that year.
Wow. Wow.
Pointed out in that article.
But you never knew that?
Huh?
You never knew that?
Well, I guess I knew it
Maybe
at
you
the time,
knew it. Yeah.
but I didn't make a big issue of it.
That is impressive.
That would be very funny.
It is.
Yeah. Well, there was.
Did everyone study for it? Was it something that you studied for?
Well,
this exam?
I most of the time I never did do homework or study or anything. Most of the time, but a lot of people did.
Yeah.
And
but did you study for that exam? Do you remember that being a big deal?
I don't remember. I don't remember doing that, but I must have for sure. But one of my teachers one time asked me if I would tutor one of the girls that was failing. She was.
But it wasn't Nana?
Wasn't that exam.
Oh, okay.
But this was in high school.
Oh, okay.
After I got into high school.
Okay.
One of the girls, Fanny B. Jennings. I remember her name. I went over to her house several times at night and helped her study.
But you were that kid that you were so smart that you had to help other kids.
Well, that's what they said.
That's what they said.
Yeah, and there was a couple of lesbians that lived together that worked in the shirt factory.
Oh.
They drove around in a coupe automobile, parked up on the square, and just watched the traffic go by and stuff like that. They were, friends of my mother because they worked at the factory, and so she was their supervisor. She was the forelady for the shirt factory. So they when I graduated, well, they were insisting. They kept after my parents to make sure I went to college. Be sure I went to college.
Yeah.
But and I looked around at the time, but I was really I had been taking home study course in electronics from DeVry University.
DeVry?
DeVry.
That's that old? I've heard of that.
Yeah, H.A. DeVry, he invented the motion picture too.
Really?
Machine, yeah. And Dr. Lee DeForest, who invented the vacuum tube, collaborated with him, and they put together a home study course. Sent me a projector, and I subscribed to it. Sent me every week I'd get a new film for the projector, and I'd write down the answers and send them in.
What?
And they're great, yeah. And so I finished that. So I'd made up my mind that I wanted to work in electronics.
Yeah.
So that was, well, it wound up. I was in component manufacturing more than anything, but I really kind of specialized in electronic components. And when I was I had graduated from high school, I looked around and there was only 2 places that I knew of that I thought I could get what I really wanted, and that was one of them was MIT, and the other one was Tri-State College in Angola, Indiana.
Oh.
Well, I thought there might be a half a chance I might be able, but I kind of decided I just couldn't work enough to pay for it, and I knew my parents couldn't pay for it.
Wow.
And so I just put it off for a couple of years, and then finally after working and repairing radios and so forth, and doing public address work, systems and advertising, stuff like that. Well, I said, gee, I got to have a more basic background,
Right.
you know. So a fellow that I knew that I'd worked with a little bit in Lebanon, and he had a radio shop. I had one in Watertown. He had one there, and I worked with him a lot. And he had graduated from TPI. It was TPI at that time.
Which was Tennessee Tech?
Uh-huh.
Tennessee Polytechnical.
Yeah, it was
Right.
Institute. It was
Yeah.
Tennessee Polytechnic Institute at that time.
But now it's called Tennessee Tech.
Now it's Tennessee Tech
Okay.
University, yeah. And so he convinced me that I could work enough that I was doing to pay for it. Be able to pay for it. So sure enough, I went and I did my work there, and I was there in 38, 39, 40. And 1940, the war was coming, and about that time, Nana was dating a doctor, and I'd see her on weekends, but she was dating a doctor there in town, and so that wasn't the motivating thing, but it happened that after I decided I was going into the Air Force, and got a letter of recommendation to the Air Force,
Right.
and still working my radio shop, and finally I would date her on weekends, and finally I decided that that was going to be the end of my college career. I was going to probably because of the war was long.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be prudent for me to
Right.
try to go back, and I had gotten about 3 years of credits for it.
Wow.
On a degree, because I had taken maximum load every quarter.
Yeah.
We were for quarters, you know.
Yeah.
And I took 21 quarter-hour credits every quarter, and then I took a full load in the summer.
Wow.
So I went to those 2 years and 2 summers, and then the war came.
Okay. Wow.
I was approaching.
Yep.
Close enough that I
You have to bring it closer.
I asked Nana to marry me, and I said, I haven't got any money. We may have to live in a tent. She said, it's okay with me.
Oh, so she picked you over the doctor, even though you couldn't promise her a fortune, huh?
Yeah.
That's real love. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
And that was 1941?
that was in 1940.
40.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right. You're
I'm
on the
married
10th,
on
yeah.
August 31st,
1940.
No,
No, 40.
yeah, August 31st.
40.
1940.
40. Yeah.
Mouth Florida next July.
Wow.
Yeah, the next July.
Oh.
I was
Not
born.
even a full year after they're married.
Yeah, not even a full year. Wow. Huh.
So that guided me into the career that I wound up with.
Yeah.
I didn't have much, a lot of things I didn't have a choice, but I never have regretted anything I made.
No.
I did. I decided.
Yeah.
So in the living room, I would start by refinishing
Huh.
the floors. I would take some of the sheen off.
Yeah, just the timing of it. It didn't make sense to stay. You needed to go, you either needed to enlist or be enlisted, essentially, for the war.
Total overhaul. I
and you knew that the war would be long enough that going back after that, that didn't really make sense.
No.
Yeah. And so needing a college degree didn't really
No,
that wasn't really the
well, as it turned out, it didn't make any difference because I never did apply for a job there
you needed one.
where I needed one.
Yeah.
And my dad worked for a shirt manufacturing, shirt and pants manufacturing, and the pants factory was in Pulaski, Tennessee, and the shirt factory was in Watertown. My dad was the general manager of that shirt factory, and so I worked when I was in high school. I worked there part time. You know, I'd go in and work and fold pockets and collars and things like that for shirts. And I worked with an efficiency expert. They hired an efficiency expert to come in there and redesign all of the lines of tables and so forth, so that the goods could move rapidly down without having to be bundled up and carried from one place to another. That's when I learned about production lines. And I helped this efficiency expert. And
isn't that something?
yeah. So I introduced really a production line like that for making deflection yokes for TV, and I got that put in, and I didn't have a production line like that until let's see. Yeah, I don't think I did that until about 1949 or 50, and after the war. But had already been making some deflection yokes for television, but quite a lot, as a matter of fact. In 1948, there was only 100,000 TV sets built, and I made 60,000 deflection yokes that year.
Really?
Yeah.
And every TV had to have one of those.
Had to
and you made 60,000 of them?
Yeah.
And there were only 100,000 made that year.
Yeah.
Wow. That's quite a production you had going.
Yeah, it was the next year though it doubled up.
It doubled.
I was getting orders for 100,000 at a time.
Really?
Yeah.
So did you have to turn them down, or did you
No,
increase?
we just kept increasing.
Just increased production.
Our capability, and then built a new factory in 1950.
Can you help her?
1950, we built a new factory.
Okay. What was your company called?
Well, at that time, it started out Groves Corporation, because Fred Groves was the Ford dealer, and he couldn't buy cars during the war. So he had space upstairs. So our factory from 1943 until 1949 was up there, over that automobile dealers, and then Walt left. I ran the place then for about 6 months, and Walt went over and started all of the paperwork and everything for establishing a new company called Davis Electric Company. And he says, "Hold on, do this, and when I get it all done, I want you to come with me."
Wow. So Davis Electric.
Yeah.
That's what it was
so
called.
That's what it was all during the war. After the war.
After the war.
Groves Corporation during the war.
Right. And then Davis Electric.
Yeah.
Gracie. Do you have any regrets for not getting your college diploma?
I
Or
don't
not
have any.
really?
No, I don't. Because I never did. I worked with engineers all over
Yeah.
the country.
Yeah,
I worked with RCA engineers and,
yeah,
Admiral and Motorola and then of course later Motorola hired me as an engineer. So
yeah,
and I wasn't the chief engineer, but I was chief engineer
yeah,
of the Davis plant, Davis Electric,
right.
and I became chief engineer of Ross Electronics down on the border in 1970. 1970. I went with them
In El Paso?
in El Paso. Yeah.
That's when my mom and dad were meeting.
Hmm.
But Cindy was with you in El Paso.
Well,
And Cindy?
she finished. She
Oh,
had
she
to.
should have
She
finished.
had a little bit of almost a year, or at least a big part of her senior year left. So she stayed with some friends
That's right.
up there.
Uh-huh.
Stayed with them till she graduated, and
Then she came down.
she came down, and then she wanted to go get special education for special needs kids. So she wanted to enroll in Colorado and
Colorado State.
Colorado State.
Yeah. And I took her up there, and she stayed in the dormitory. You know.
Uh-huh.
And I went and visited her 2 or 3 times,
Uh-huh.
and but she didn't last there very long. I don't know if it was past a year or not. Do you remember, Chris?
If what?
How long Cindy stayed in college?
I think only a year or maybe 2.
Yeah, something like that too. I got very disappointed that she quit.
That she
You know,
quit.
she flat quit, and I was very disappointed because I wanted her to finish
Yeah.
school. And
Did that cause tension with you guys?
well, yeah, it was quite bad. In fact, I think I talked to Chris one time. He told me that he had talked to her, and she was said that she was getting involved with druggies and people like that, doing all kind of things that she didn't approve of and didn't like,
Uh-huh.
and that's really the reason.
That's
She
really
never
the-
did tell me that,
Oh.
but Chris said that he found out that
Yeah.
from her,
Yeah.
and so she quit and came. Then by that time I didn't stay in El Paso very long, and then moved to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Well, the head of Thordarson Meisner. Thordarson Meisner was established in 1895, so it's the oldest electronic firm in the country. And so the president of Thordarson Meisner came down to El Paso to buy some equipment that we were going to be selling. We had a lot of equipment down there, and so he sat in my office down there across the table, across the desk from me, and talked me into coming with him because he'd just bought a new plant in Fort Lauderdale,
Uh-huh.
and he didn't think they had good management. So he brought me in to take it over and run it. So,
And that was in Fort Lauderdale.
Fort Lauderdale, yeah.
And that was the early 70s.
Yeah, it was 71.
So is that where they were living when you guys got married, Dad? Do you remember? Oh, okay.
We got married in 71.
still in Chicago.
Huh?
I thought they were still in
Build up a
Chicago.
wall to separate the master bedroom from the bathroom. Create a
Were you still in Chicago then in 71?
Was what?
Were you still
In
in?
71, were you still in Chicago?
No, me?
Yeah.
No, I was in Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, okay.
71.
You went from El Paso to or Fort Lauderdale.
I went from El Paso to Fort Lauderdale. Yeah, directly.
And then how long did you stay in Fort Lauderdale?
Well, I stayed there till 75,
Oh.
and I moved all of the works from there, took everything in trailer loads and took it all to Mount Carmel, Illinois. So, and then I moved to Evansville.
Then Evansville.
Yeah.
Okay.
I stayed in Evansville. I lived in Evansville. I couldn't find any place over in
Oh.
Mount Carmel.
Okay. And
really-
that's the house I remember.
Oh, yeah, huh?
Yep.
Yeah, right.
The Evansville house.
You came down there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't remember. I don't know if you saw the first house.
The first house. Okay.
The
Well,
first one.
She did, but you were a baby.
I was a baby.
Yeah.
Where did I ride the tractor at?
That was the first time.
That was the first house. I have a picture of me riding the tractor with
Okay. Well.
with you, right?
Yep.
With my dad.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to make a garden, and I did. I
That was a big tractor.
bought a tractor so I could make a garden, and I did.
That was a pretty big tractor.
And
It was
mow
a
the
cute
grass.
picture. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the second house, I mean, assuming it was the second house that
Second
I
house-
remember.
Second house was over in Hobstadt, on the highway, out on the highway.
Yeah, but it had a huge. Yard.
I had a big yard.
Yeah.
In fact, I had a big yard where the house was, and I owned the lot behind me
Okay.
over to the next
Yeah.
street.
Yeah.
So I owned all the way from the road to the next
Uh-huh.
street over.
Yeah.
And I was the biggest lot was on the road that I was in.
Yeah. Yeah.
The side next to the road. Yeah. And
But I remember that house because I remember you had a workshop in the basement, and Nana had her painting in the basement, and the kiln was in the basement.
Yeah.
But you were working on some doll furniture, like you were doing some
Yeah, I did a
woodworking
lot
down
of
there.
that. Made
Yeah.
a lot of doll furniture.
Yeah. And Nana's painting was down there,
Yeah.
her China painting.
Yeah.
And she made, that's when I first had her sweet pickles that she would jar
Uh-huh.
every summer.
Yeah.
And you had a little dog. Was that Brandy?
Yeah. Brandy.
Little Brandy.
Yeah.
And it was a big open living room when you first walked in, with stairs that went up with an open hallway.
Yeah. A few,
With the bedrooms.
A few steps up,
Uh-huh.
and an open hallway
Yeah.
to each bedroom.
Yes. And there was a pink bedroom. Was there a pink bedroom?
I don't know.
Or am I imagining
A
that?
what?
A pink bedroom.
Pink?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No.
I never pay much attention.
Because Cindy
to
would
the
have been too old.
decoration. Nana did all the decorating.
Was Aunt Cindy too? She would have. Yeah.
Yeah, she was
She wouldn't have lived.
She was in Michigan.
She wouldn't have lived with you guys there.
No, she never
No.
did.
No. Not
She
in Evansville.
lived with us in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
And then she worked at Disney World.
She did.
Yeah. Yeah, she worked at when Disney World first got started.
Yeah.
She was worked in the wilderness
Oh.
area of Disney World.
The Wilderness Lodge. There's a lodge. No, that was right
Yeah.
by our hotel, Emma. We drove
Yeah.
by that every day.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Uh,
That's a good job.
uh-huh.
That's funny. That's really funny. Wow.